Hunter Jin-Woo Sung arrived at the scene. His eyes scanned everything around him, and he announced, "All clear." The area around the school was buzzing with people. Some were shouting, "My child is inside," while others pleaded, "Let me through." Emotions ran high as people tried to make sense of what happened. If not for the police and the Hunters Association keeping things under control, the situation might have spiraled out of hand. News reporters rushed in, cameras rolling, eager to capture every moment and get the best shots possible. The air was electric with excitement and tension, as everyone tried to understand the unfolding events. Someone shouted, "It's Jin-Woo Sung. Grab a photo." He dodged the reporters and walked up to someone who looked like they worked for the association. The staff member looked worried when they saw how serious Jin-Woo appeared. "Hunter Sung," the staff started to say, but before they could finish, Jin-Woo asked, "Do you know where my sister is?" She was taken to Seoul El-Shin Hospital with the other students. The staff replied. Jin-Woo nodded seriously and walked away. The staff member let out a breath they'd been holding without realizing it. When medics got there, the first thing they did was check on Gina, following the association's instructions. Luckily Gina was okay. She had some scrapes on her neck and wrists, but nothing too serious. Jin-Woo probably already knew all this because he was the one who rescued her. But wow, he was still in a funk about it. Gina was safe now, because Jin-Woo showed up just in time. But what if he hadn't? The staff member shivered at the thought. What a relief she was okay. But Jin-Woo's heart sank as he pulled out his phone. His mom would definitely hear about what happened. A lot of students had been attacked by magic beasts, and she'd be super worried. He needed to call her before she found out through someone else. Just as he was about to dial, a voice surprised him from behind. "An employee has been sent to your mother, Hunter Sung," someone said. "She's probably on her way to the hospital by car. Right now." Don't present gun he. Gao stood there looking just as serious as Jin-Woo felt, even though this wasn't exactly his fault. It was clear the head of the Hunters Association felt responsible for this tragedy that they couldn't prevent. Jin-Woo wanted to thank President Go for thinking about his family during such a tough time. But President Go shook his head. "No, we're the ones who should be thanking you," he said. Then he added, 17 students. Thanks to Jin-Woo, 17 more people survived than would have otherwise. "We still owe you a big thank you," someone said. Jin-Woo smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. He still wished he could have saved even more students, if only he had access to Shadow Exchange. President Go looked like he understood how Jin-Woo was feeling. Shaking his head, Jin-Woo told himself, not the time for emotions. He had a job to do. Looking up at President Go, he asked, "Are you heading to the hospital?" Jin-Woo briefly thought about Gwangali Beach, but quickly dismissed it. His mana levels were steady, so things must be going well with Baru and the ants. No surprise there. It's Baru we're talking about, so no need to worry about the raid. President Go asked, "Are you heading to the hospital?" Jin-Woo nodded. "Yes. Why not ride together then?" President Go suggested. "It's okay, sir." Jin-Woo replied politely. President Go chuckled and said, "Let's go." They set off toward the hospital, leaving the raid in Baru's capable hands. "I have something I'd like to tell you." Jin-Woo had initially declined because he'd assumed the offer was just a polite gesture, but he decided to accept President Go's earnest request. "Okay. Thank you." Jin-Woo followed the president to his car, and they both climbed into the back seat. Even though it was a big sedan, the space felt tight because of President Go's large size and Jin-Woo's broad shoulders. The driver, Jin-Woo, exchanged quiet greetings with Jin-Woo through the rearview mirror. As the car started moving slowly, President Go began speaking in a hesitant tone, his face looking serious. "We might have seen this coming." Jin-Woo was confused. Did the association know about what happened and do nothing to stop it? Before Jin-Woo's confusion turned into anger, President Go pulled out his phone to show something on the screen. Jin-Woo stared at the mysterious chart in front of him. "This shows how gates have been popping up more often in Seoul over the past 6 months. President Go explained. The line on the chart started off steady but then shot up sharply toward the end. And it's not just happening here, it's the same story everywhere else in the world. Jin-Woo looked at the second chart and did a double take. It looked almost identical to the first one. If President Go hadn't pointed it out, he might have thought they were the same exact chart. Gates are appearing exponentially all around the globe. President Go said with a serious frown. But here's something even weirder, he said, stuffing his phone back into his jacket pocket. Lately, there have been super long lines at the association. People are eager to confirm their ranks as reawakened beings. And get this, it's not just people who've come back with powers. More gates and magic beasts mean more hunters stepping up to protect them. It all seems balanced. Jin-Woo's eyes lit up with curiosity, so President Go kept going, looking a bit puzzled himself. You could feel it in the air, something was up. But this was still just a guess. But hey, this is just my 2 cents. He added, making sure to stress that point. Jin-Woo nodded, and honestly, who wouldn't find that intriguing? It was pretty clear to everyone involved that something was going on. The big question was, what? But for now, they just have to wait and see. Jin-Woo wondered why President Go didn't just call instead of meeting in person. He figured there must be a bigger reason. President Go, who's always super busy, took time off his packed schedule to meet. So what is it you wanted to talk to me about? He asked, curious if something big was coming. President Go quickly grabbed some papers from his briefcase by his feet, like he couldn't wait for Jin-Woo to ask the question. Wow. Imagine this countries like Japan, United States, China, Russia, France, England, Germany, and even some in the Middle East are all trying to reach out. These nations are among the most powerful on Earth. Hunter Sung, you've got official messages from them wanting to connect with you. It's possible they've already sent secret messages or met with you quietly. Jin-Woo remembered when American agents from the Hunter Command Center approached him, but kept it to himself. Honestly, the Hunters Association can't stop these countries from making contact. President Go leaned forward, his voice soft but serious. We're keeping things private because that's what you wanted. Jin-Woo didn't say a word, just kept staring ahead. President Go continued, it's your choice, but I think Korea might struggle without you. Jin-Woo shifted his gaze to the window, his mind racing. As he sat there lost in thought, the hospital where Gina was staying came into view. President Go fidgeted with some papers on his desk. We'll give you everything you need, he said nervously. So, please stay. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Yoon-tae watched in awe as a line of ants marched toward the entrance of a mysterious cave. Look at that, he whispered to the others. The strike squad followed quietly behind, ready for whatever lay ahead. Shouldn't we stop them, boss? You really think that's possible? Jong-soo doubted they could convince the creatures to hold back the attack, so his team could collect magic beast parts or magic stones. He let out a heavy sigh. Let's forget about those. He changed his mind. The main reason they stepped through that gate was to show everyone that the Knights Guild still had what it took. Clearing a top-level A-rank dungeon, without losing anyone or getting hurt, would be plenty to prove their strength, and they were determined to do it without Hunter Sung's help, which was perfect. Whatever happens inside. Well, let's just keep it our little secret for now. Even if people credited the ants with taking down the boss, everyone would still think the Knights Guild was behind the success, not Jin-Woo's minions who showed up after he left. Once the boss was defeated, and the gate closed, there'd be no way to prove it anyway. Plus, Jin-Woo didn't seem like the type to spill the beans. Jong-soo figured this out, and managed to crack a smile. Well, at least that worked out. But then, something stirred among the hunters at the back of the group. President Park, I think something's coming from behind us. Someone shouted. Yeah, I hear it too. Jong-soo's smile faded as he walked toward the commotion, looking confused. He heard the sound of fast footsteps getting closer. Had the collection team arrived already? But the Knights Guild collection team, with all their experience, wouldn't usually barge into a dungeon without orders. Wait, Jong-soo's thoughts were cut short when he saw a swarm of undead magic beasts that the ants hadn't eaten yet. Could this be why the ants had been feasting on the undead? But before he could figure it out, panic set in. He realized there were way too many beasts for his team to handle. Everyone, get into the boss's lair now. Jong-soo shouted urgently. Their only hope was the soldiers Jin-Woo had left behind. The strike squad dashed into the lair quickly, not stopping to see what dangers waited inside. Jongs counted his team to make sure everyone was there, then yelled, "Block the entrance." Urim raised her hands, and an invisible wall called Holy Wall popped up in front of them. Bang! Bang! The Death Knights at the front of the charging horde slammed into the barrier. Sweat dripped onto Urim's forehead, as she glanced back at Jong-soo for reassurance. "Sir, it won't last even 5 minutes." "I know. The team was gearing up for the battle ahead, knowing the wall wouldn't hold much longer. On the other side, a swarm of strange creatures buzzed angrily like a mix of zombies and magical beasts, all rolled into one. The sight made them doubt their chances. "We'll just have to hope our shadow ants can take down that big boss first," he said, his voice tight with worry. "Then maybe they'll help clean up this mess for us." He turned back to watch the shadow ants facing off against the boss. They looked fierce, but... Oh no, he stared in disbelief. He instantly recognized the magic creature the shadow ants were facing. He had heard its name many times before. It was an archlich, a pale-faced mage in tattered robes, and it was the most feared undead beast of all. This was bad news. Jong-soo's expression turned serious as he realized things just got much worse. He still hoped the minions could defeat the boss fast and come help them, but they were up against an archlich, which made things super tough. The more likely situation was that the hunters would finish off the undead first, and then team up with the minions to fight. Just then, Baru stepped forward to face the archlich. As he did, the undead creature with dark magic called upon a dozen death knights to form a circle around the ants. Baru snapped his jaws and flexed his sharp claws. "Skraza," he hissed. The archlich noticed something strange, black steam swirling off Baru's body. If it had eyes, they probably would have widened in shock. "The Shadow Army," the archlich said, using the language of magic creatures. Baru pulled back his claws, and suddenly they could understand each other. The archlich glanced at the ants behind Baru with a confused smile. "Why are the ants attacking me?" it asked. Baru let out a mocking hiss that sounded like laughter, and pointed at himself with one claw. "We were chosen by the king," he said with a confident smirk. He then pointed at the archlich. "But you weren't." The archlich's voice boomed in outrage, echoing its disbelief. "Nonsense. I'll ask the king myself," it shouted. But before it could finish, Baru suddenly appeared right in front of its face. The archlich flinched, startled by the surprise encounter. Baru was no ordinary creature. It was a powerful magic beast created from the life force of an S-rank dungeon boss, making it a formidable opponent. Even though Baru wasn't as strong as before after turning into a shadow warrior, he was still way too powerful for the archlich, the boss of an elite dungeon. Baru grabbed the glowing pendant around the archlich's neck and slammed both the pendant and his fist into the boss's chest. His hand burst out through the archlich's back, clutching the pendant tightly. Since Baru used to be a top-tier magic beast himself, he could easily pinpoint his enemy's life source, which in this case was the pendant. The archlich shook its head, clearly dazed from the attack. "No, ugh," screamed the voice. But Baru didn't flinch. With a swift move, she pressed the pendant. Crack. In an instant, the archlich vanished into thin air. "Guess you had too much to say for a dead guy," Baru remarked casually. Jong-soo stood there with his mouth wide open, trying to wrap his head around what he just saw. The archlich was defeated in one hit. That didn't make sense. Everyone knew how dangerous the archlich was, especially after wiping out the powerful Yellow Dragon Guild from China. But maybe their fate was sealed from the start. An archlich is no joke. It can call forth an army of death knights, super tough undead warriors. These guys are so powerful that it takes a team of top-tier hunters to take them down. So don't be fooled if the boss doesn't seem to have any guards at first glance. Underestimating it could lead to you being defeated quickly. In the end, the Yellow Dragon Guild messed up and couldn't close the gate. This failure caused a dungeon break, which was a pretty big and dangerous problem. Chugong Liu, a top hunter from China, showed up just in time to stop things from getting really bad. His quick action turned what could have been a disaster into a cautionary tale for hunters about the dangers of the dark sorcerer known as the archlich. But then something even crazier happened. A giant ant swung its massive claw and killed the archlich in one hit. It was an unforgettable sight. Yontae stood next to his commander Jong-soo. Both of them stunned into silence. Their jaws dropped as they struggled to believe what they had just seen. "Whoa!" Yontae exclaimed, staring at Jong-soo in shock. "Boss, isn't that an archlich?" "Yeah, just like the one from that super tough Yellow Dragon Guild dungeon," Jong-soo replied. "And that ant just wiped it out." Yontae's eyes were wide with disbelief. The other hunters standing around couldn't help but overhear the conversation. Their jaws dropped as they listened. An archlich, someone whispered in awe. That's really an archlich? Another hunter asked, their voice trembling slightly, and it got taken down with just one hit. Everyone started buzzing with excitement, their eyes fixed on Jin-Woo's minion. How could something so small destroy the boss of an A-rank dungeon like it was nothing? The room filled with murmurs of amazement, as the hunters tried to wrap their heads around what they'd just seen. Meanwhile Yurim, the healer, was all alone facing a noisy crowd of undead beasts. She was really distracted, but super curious about what was behind her. What's going on? What happened? She asked quickly. But before she got any answers, something shocking happened, right in front of her eyes. Huh. The undead magic beasts, which had been mere seconds away from breaking through the holy wall, suddenly collapsed to the ground like marionettes, whose strings had been cut. Cud, thump. They lay there motionless. President Park. Yurim stared at him in shock, confused by what just happened. Jong-soo nodded to calm her down, letting her know everything was okay. Had those undead beasts been revived by the Archlich power? Just moments ago, things had looked hopeless when that dark cloud of magic beasts came after them. Now, he could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Phew, Jong-soo let out a relieved breath, as huge smiles spread across the faces of the strike squad. They were thrilled that everyone was going to leave the dungeon safe and sound. Good job, boss, someone said. What did I do? They're the ones who did all the work. Yontae replied with a shrug. He turned to see what Jong-soo was pointing at. The minions stood silently staring at the hunters, as if asking, what's next? They're kind of super cute when they stand quietly like this, Yontae thought to himself. Suddenly, one of the ants let out a loud roar at the ceiling for no apparent reason, definitely not because it was bored. Skura Bolf! Yontae's interest in them vanished in an instant. He turned to Jong-soo instead. Hey boss, isn't this just like Hunter Sung clearing the dungeon by himself? Exactly, Jong-soo replied. Agreeing with Yontae, the strike squad had basically just followed Jin-Woo's giant ants into the deepest part of a super dangerous dungeon. These weren't ordinary ants, they were Jin-Woo's personal minions. So really, it was no different than Jin-Woo tackling the dungeon alone. What crazy power. Jin-Woo's abilities were just as mind-blowing as everyone saw in that broadcast from Junyi Island. Jin-Woo's minions turned out to be way stronger than anyone could have guessed. And the fact that he could boss them around, however he wanted, was seriously mind-blowing. Yontae casually mentioned, so Hunter Sung can just clear a gate by sending those guys in. But hearing that sent shivers down Jong-soo's spine. Think about it, on Jeju Island, alone, Jin-Woo had summoned over 200 minions, and that was just the ones caught on camera. Who knows how many more he had that weren't recorded. The thought was straight up terrifying. If Jin-Woo stayed outside the dungeon and just sent in his minions, he could totally outsmart everyone else. Sure, he'd need some mana to summon and control them, so he can't use them all at once. But even if he used half or a quarter of them, that would still be way more powerful than anything the top guilds could do. Man, that's genius. If Jin-Woo's guild were a company, Jong-soo would have invested everything he had in it. Boss, he said, we should totally join Hunter Sung's guild. It's a no-brainer. Yontae just stood there looking all innocent, and Jong-soo shot him a look like, really? The proper term is M&A, mergers and acquisitions, Yontae said, a mischievous glint in his eye. How about this headlined? Knight's Guild teams up with new guild, led by Korea's top hunters. Wouldn't that make waves? Hunter Sung nearly spit out his coffee. You're not serious, are you? He asked, half choking. Think about it, Yontae said, leaning in excitedly. Combine your skills with our guild's know-how, and we'd be unstoppable. Even the Hunters Guild wouldn't stand a chance. Hunter Sung raised an eyebrow. Why would Hae-in Chas, the vice president of the Hunters Guild, leave to join forces with him? There had to be a solid reason behind it. Yontae's face lit up as he nodded. Then he frowned, tapping his chin thoughtfully. But wait, could this really work? Do you really think Hunter Sung needs us, boss? Jong-soo raised an eyebrow. You think Hunter Sung's guild can just ignore the rules? Even if his followers can clear dungeons for him, he still needs a certain number of strike squad members. Yontae's eyes widened as everything clicked into place. You're right, boss, Yontae said with a grin. If we help Hunter Sung meet the minimum number of people he needs, he'll end up helping us too. It's a great plan. Working together would make our raids faster and way more efficient. If they couldn't convince the S-rank hunter to join their guild, Joining his might be the next best move. Jong-soo had painted a bright future, and Yoon-tae couldn't help but feel hopeful about how things might turn out. Sure thing, boss. Yoon-tae replied. But aren't we kinda copying Hunter Sung's moves? Jong-soo shot him a look, then flashed a smile. Think of it as getting in on a sweet deal before anyone else. Yoon-tae shrugged, and they both chuckled. Just then, the ground started to shake. Rumble. The dungeon boss was down, so the gate began closing. Time to roll, Jong-soo said, calling out to his team waiting nearby. They all hustled out, grinning. Close call, but mission accomplished. Let's go, team. We've got to move before that gate shuts. One voice urged. Are you sure you'll have everything we need? Someone asked. President Go nodded firmly. Absolutely, he assured them. There were 10 top Korean hunters, all with S-rank status, but 3 of them were already gone. 2 taken down by monsters and 1 who jumped ship to America. President Go and the Hunters Association couldn't risk losing another. They were ready to go all out to hold on to their remaining top hunters, but if it were any other top-ranked hunter, they probably wouldn't go to such extremes. However, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo was someone President Go absolutely couldn't afford to lose. His eyes burned with determination. As president of the Hunters Association, he'd met a lot of powerful hunters over the years, but none had ever excited him the way Jin-Woo did. President Go really wanted Jin-Woo to stay in Korea, for both personal reasons and for the good of the country. He assured Jin-Woo, "We'll give you everything we can." This showed just how much President Go valued Jin-Woo, and it also revealed how determined Jin-Woo was to stay. Jin-Woo thought for a moment before asking, "Can I enter a high-rank gate by myself?" The president was caught off guard. "Wait, do you want us to change the rule that requires a certain number of hunters for a raid?" Jin-Woo nodded. The president hesitated because having enough hunters was a safety rule meant to protect everyone. The policy was supposed to stop hunters from rushing into dungeons without thinking, which could get them killed. But Jin-Woo was different. It had an army of minions and could handle S-rank magic beasts on his own. President Go thought back to what happened in the ant cave, and stumbled over his words. Does this mean you're planning to tackle every single gate your guild gets permits for, all by yourself? He asked. Jin-Woo simply replied, yes. President Go was left speechless. Why did Jin-Woo even form a guild in the first place? Fritzy wondered. Was it all just so he could clear high-ranking dungeons alone? There were plenty of strong hunters out there, but none pulled off raids like this guy. President Go sat there chatting politely with Jin-Woo, but his mind kept drifting back to the Jin-Woo he'd seen earlier charging through a cave full of ants, sending them flying with his minions. It was wild, a one-man strike squad. That idea really grabbed President Go's attention. He'd been losing sleep over big guilds getting too powerful lately. Now here was someone who could shake things up all by himself. President Go's heart started racing again. This guy was something else. As he pressed a hand against his chest to ease the sharp pains, he glanced at the guy next to him with a small wry smile. The man looked like a walking billboard for perfect health. Am I asking too much? He asked. President Go shook his head. Not impossible, he said firmly. Sure, it wouldn't be easy, nothing ever was when you were dealing with someone as powerful as Gun-hee Go. He wasn't just the president of the Hunters Association, he was also one of the strongest hunters in the world, and a high-ranking government official. But still, impossible wasn't part of his vocabulary.